New Deputy Director for Professional Development, Sue Holmes, the job search process, and IPA's annual salary study in this edition of IPA Talk. Hi, I'm Jason Leahy, Executive Director of the Illinois Principals Association. I'd like to welcome you to this edition of IPA Talk. And with me here this morning are our Deputy Director for Professional Development, Dr. Sue Holmes, as well as Brian Schwartz, IPA General Counsel and Deputy Director. So welcome to both of you, and Sue, especially for you, because I think this is your maiden voyage for IPA Talk, right?
It is. It's my first IPA Talk experience.
Yeah, very good, very good. So for those maybe that haven't had an opportunity to meet you or get to know you a little bit, could you just introduce yourself, let the viewers know where you're from, and those kinds of things?
Sure. Well, I've been with IPA now for 6 months, and prior to that served as superintendent for the Smithton School District down in St. Clair County. And then prior to that, central office as technology director and assistant superintendent for the Collinsville School District for 17 years prior to that. Started out as a high school teacher in Wisconsin. So very excited to be with the Illinois Principals Association to further my passion in professional development and helping to really build out the leaders that we need in this time in education in particular. So great to join you this morning.
And of course, the most important thing is Sue's a Cardinals fan. And really, that was the only interview question that really mattered. So there we are. But we appreciate that to battle back all of the Cubs fans in the office. So right now we're into the winter spring season, and it is hiring season. We know that we've got several individuals that will be looking at either dusting up the resume or getting those things put together to interview for the positions and things that are coming open here. And we've got a variety of resources that are available at IPA to help out people with that. If you didn't know, something that I do quite often is review resumes for individuals. So if you're interested in having that done, you can email that to me or give me a call, and we can talk through that process, talk through the interview and a variety of things related to that. But I thought, Sue, with you here and obviously with your superintendent's experience and having the opportunity to work with building principals, both when you were in Collinsville as well as at Smithton prior to coming at IPA, when you think about hiring a building leader, what are the kinds of things that school districts are looking for today?
Sure. And was fortunate enough to be involved in the hiring of dozens of leaders over my time in both Collinsville and Smithton. And of course, one of the things that I always looked for, and I think is really relevant even to today, is someone that brings a lot of dynamic energy to the interview and to their work in general, looking for people who are creative, always looking for people that are very data-driven. I think it's really important that folks understand the data that surrounds them in order to really develop out the curriculum, to align the curriculum. Right now in 2018, I think it's important that folks be looking at what is changing. In other words, what is this ESSA plan that's going into implementation currently now? Of course, IPA has been involved with IASA in rolling out training on that topic, as well as the evidence-based funding. I think folks that are looking for those jobs really need to be up to speed on as much of that information as possible, because they're going to be expected to be the leaders in their buildings. And as we know, under the new ESSA plan, the school principal plays a huge, a very important role in leading for excellence. And again, I always look for people that had that excitement about them, folks that wanted to bring a positive culture, really wanted to be open and collaborative with teachers and help teachers to become those teacher leaders that they may wish to be. So those are some of the things that I always look for and I think really have value today as well.
Yeah, agreed. So Brian, from a legal perspective, kind of put you on the spot here a little bit. When you think about school leadership, and of course you teach prospective leaders at the University of Illinois at Springfield, law classes, what do you think is really critical for those that are considering the job?
Staying up to date. There's, as Sue mentioned, there's so much more going on now than there was 20, 25 years ago in terms of responsibilities. And I think that's One of the ways that IPA comes into importance is the resources that we provide to building level leaders across the state.
Right, agreed. Well, there's no lack of activity, especially as we enter into the spring legislative session here in particular. So one of the questions that I get often from prospective leaders in particular is, what should I be doing right now to get ready for the job? And I think the thing that comes to mind for me most of all is just to be sure to lead well wherever you're situated, in your classroom as well as with different activity that's going on with your school. I remember when I was still a teacher, I took part in the school improvement planning process, took part in planning committees and any discussions that were happening around curriculum and those kinds of things, data as Sue mentioned. So I think it's being really vigilant about capturing the opportunities that are available and capitalizing on those things. And most importantly, doing your job well wherever you are. I don't think there's anything that can be done better than that from that perspective. So variety of things that we can assist and support with regards to the hiring process, whether you're a prospective leader or somebody that's already in the school leader position and maybe looking for a new opportunity. There's nothing wrong with looking around and growing as a professional. I did that. I know that Sue and Brian have done that as well, and so it's important to be mindful of that when the time is right. But let's just assume, Brian, here that people have looked for the job, they've gone through the hard work of doing the paperwork, going through the interview process, all of that, and they've nailed it down. And so now they're in the process of going for the contract, maybe negotiating a salary, those kinds of things. So, I know that you do a lot of support with folks that are working through their administrative contract. What advice do you have for them as they're looking at that?
Well, congratulations on getting your new position, or your first position maybe. The most important thing is to have a written contract.
Which not everybody does, right?
No. The salary survey, which we'll talk about later, shows that only about 85% of principals and assistant principal deans have a written contract. So it is important to have a written contract, both that lets you know what your job responsibilities are and lets the district know what their responsibilities are to you. And IPA does provide a model principals contract, and that is available on our website in Word format. And that's a good document to compare your contract with. And we are also happy to review individuals' contracts and go over them together and point out the strengths and weaknesses.
So a common question might be, Brian, is people may ask, should it be a single-year contract, multi-year contract? As you're working people through that type of discussion, what advice do you give them?
Sure, and that's more of an individual decision. The real benefit of a multi-year contract is certainly the protection for a certain number of years. Mm-hmm. With a single-year contract, and employee gains teaching tenure. A principal would gain teaching tenure, but not under a multi-year contract. So those are really the big differences, and it's something to weigh carefully and discuss with your superintendent.
You bet. So I know educators, especially when you're coming from the teaching ranks where you've been on a salary schedule, and that's typically bargained within the teachers union. So individuals moving into a school leadership position, really whether you're new or maybe a veteran, it's not always the most comfortable thing to be talking about. It's not something as educators we're used to talking about, but the salary is pretty important. And so IPA has been providing quite a service for some time. And Brian, I know that you lead the charge with this, with our planning, our survey for salaries and the study that goes along with that. So I think this is year, 51 or 2? Is that correct?
Not for me personally, but this is the 51st year that we've done the salary and benefit.
And we have some examples of those here on the table, correct? So here's this year's, which is in the process of going out right now. But this document, which is looks like a newsletter from IPA, from the Elementary Association, which became part of IPA in 1971. This is from 1968. This is when the first one occurred, correct?
It was a first one that we still have a record of.
Right.
And as we were looking through there, it's interesting. The average principal salary is around $11,000 to $12,000 a year, but in contrast, a new car was under $3,000, and a payphone, for those that remember that, was a dime. So,
wow.
By contrast, I guess a pretty decent salary back then.
So, Brian, just with this year's study, any general information or highlights that came about from that seemed of interest to you this year?
Sure. Well, we had 1,562 participants this year, which a little less than last year for our 50th.
It's still a pretty good number.
But yeah, we were very happy. What we've noticed is the profile of a school leader has stayed relatively the same, with the average age of a principal being just about 45 years old and an assistant principal dean being a little younger. And what's interesting we found is our youngest principal, assistant principal respondent, was 27, and our oldest was 72. So on the upper end, what we see in what the data has shown is individuals staying in the profession a little longer, with the average age presumed to be about 60 years old for all of our participants.
Really interesting.
Mm-hmm. In terms of career and retirement, what we found is 14% of principals and 7% of assistant principals, deans, plan on retiring in the next 5 years at some point. So that will give interested in our prospective administrators a little bit of the mobility rate. But what we're concerned about, and one of the things that we'll track, is that up to 1/3 of our respondents indicated that they would consider leaving education for another profession, which is interesting.
Well, which probably speaks, I know this is just pure speculation, but just how demanding the job is now, right? And how it has changed, particularly in the last decade. So. You bet. As far as other benefits, Brian, we know we track how many people are having their IPA dues paid for example, which has been pretty consistent, around 85, 86% over the years. We also ask questions about health and life insurance. Any thoughts along those lines?
Sure. Well, the average salary, and it's we do break it down by region of the state and also by experience. So there are some criteria, but the average salary statewide for public school principals is $97,000 and change. The average salary for an assistant principal dean is about $84,000 and change. In terms of health insurance benefits, what we find is that about 50% of principals and assistant principal deans receive individual health insurance, and about 32 to 35% receive full family health insurance. In terms of other benefits, the data is really all over the board, and individuals can take a look at their region of the state and their particular position to see what is standard, if standard would be the correct word.
Very good, very good. Well, we sure appreciate individuals taking the time for this. It really probably is one of our most popular services that we provide. We often get phone calls from superintendents and principals alike, especially around this time of the year, that are looking for this kind of information just to know how they stack up. I think we want to make sure things are fair for districts, but also, it's a competitive market. We want school leaders to know what they're worth out there in the field. So I'll just, as we kind of wrap up here, a couple of shameless plugs for the association, but this is our broadcast, so we can do that. One is, as I mentioned earlier, and Brian described, with the benefits that we tracked through the salary study, about 85, 86% of our members have their dues paid for by the district. So I don't think it's out of the realm of possibility as you're working through your contract to be sure that that's included in. And I know Brian has that as a part of the model student, or the model contract rather, model student handbook. That's another episode. But we want to be sure to let you know about that. The other thing that we're working on, IPA has been a part of a collaborative of multiple states working on a continuum of school leadership as we look at how to prepare school leaders from aspiring up through accomplishment, or mastering leadership, as we like to call it. This last year, we started our inaugural Launching School Leader Network to support brand new school leaders in their first and second years in the position. This year, moving forward, we're looking at starting our Aspiring School Leader Network for those prospective leaders that maybe are just thinking about the job, maybe you're in a prep program or you're past the prep program, looking to apply for that first position. So, Sue, we're talking with a couple of pretty quality school leaders in Deerfield helping us out with this. Do you mind just sharing a little bit about what we're looking at doing with our aspiring leaders?
Right. Absolutely. Very excited to be working with Anthony McConnell and Scott Schwartz, and they have a passion for this work. They've been through a similar experience with the Illinois Association of School Administrators, and so we have their expertise and their experience to help us model this program. We think that our program is going to be a model for other states, Jason, as you know, in working with some of our colleagues in the state of Washington and Wisconsin. They're looking for the work that we're doing to help them in that direction as well. I think this is going to give folks an opportunity to really network with others that are in that same position, thinking about what is the job of a school leader. What are the challenges? What are the benefits? What are the rewards of being a school leader, and having an opportunity really to connect with others throughout the year, not just at a one-time exchange of ideas, but really to have this cohort experience where they can stay connected not only during the year of the experience, but hopefully as their careers move forward. So it's extremely exciting to see that this is going to be something to really help with the pipeline of administrators in the state and give people something to really invest in to position them for those jobs that are critically needed.
Well, there's no doubt that the content that people are receiving is important, but I really feel with this network concept that we're now running, like with the launching network that's actually wrapping up right now, as well as looking forward with that, continuing that, the Aspiring School Leader Network, it's really the community building is something that I really feel like we're ratcheting up pretty significantly, giving these people opportunity to come together, spend time together, have dinner together, and communicate. I know from my own personal experience, the relationships that I built with people early on in my career are still very important to me today, to have folks that can be there to be an encouragement and sometimes provide a kick when needed or whatever it might be. So I think that's pretty important for sure.
Absolutely. I think the professional network that we build over time just simply creates a really rich library of resources. I stay connected with folks that I was lucky enough to work with or be educated with from 30 years ago.
Right.
And those people still have the opportunity to provide assistance to me, and hopefully I'm still able to provide assistance to them as well. But these are lifelong professional and sometimes personal friendships that develop that really get folks through the highs and the lows of these jobs.
Especially the lows. We need those good relationships with that for sure. Well, thanks, Sue Holmes, our Deputy Director for Professional Development, Brian Schwartz, IPA Deputy Director, General Counsel. A lot of good information as always. Subscribe and click the buttons on the screen to get to other content that might be of interest to you. Again, my name's Jason Leahy, Executive Director of the IPA. If there's anything that the association can do for you at any time, don't hesitate to give us a call, and always check us out on the web at ilprinciples.org, and take care.